The desert stretched endlessly under a burning sun. Golden dunes rolled like waves across the land, hiding secrets buried for ages. Myra stood on a ridge of stone, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She was young but determined, a human archaeologist who had traveled far across the stars in search of forgotten history. Sand clung to her boots, and sweat rolled down her face, but she did not care. Something beneath this world called to her. Around her stood a group of alien guides, tall and lean with scaled skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. They spoke little, but their eyes often turned to the ground as if afraid of what lay beneath. They had warned Myra many times that the place she searched for should never be touched. To them it was sacred, a place of shadows and curses. But Myra did not believe in curses. She believed in truth. Her scanners hummed as they swept across the dunes. Small beeping sounds filled the air, showing strange readings beneath the sand. The device displayed spikes of energy unlike anything she had seen before. This was no ordinary ruin. Something powerful was buried here. One of the alien guides stepped closer. His voice was low and rough. "Human, you must not dig. This land belongs to the Forgotten Queen. Those who disturb her chamber will not return." Myra turned to him, her face firm but calm. "If the Queen is forgotten, then it is my duty to remember her. History belongs to everyone. You may fear it, but I cannot walk away." The alien lowered his eyes. His people had passed down stories for centuries, stories of a queen who came from the stars. She had ruled with wisdom and power, uniting tribes that once fought endlessly. But one day she vanished, and with her disappearance came chaos. Generations later, her resting place was still spoken of with awe and fear. No one dared to approach it. Until now. Myra's team of human assistants joined her, setting up equipment on the ridge. Small drones lifted into the air, releasing streams of scanning light that swept over the dunes. The readings became stronger, sharper. A pattern appeared beneath the sandstone walls, a great doorway, and passages leading deeper. The image on the screen was unmistakable. A chamber of massive size was hidden below. Myra's heart raced. This was more than she had hoped for. It was not just a tomb, it was a monument. A place where a legend had been sealed away. She felt the weight of history pressing against her chest. The aliens shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves. They spoke of guardians that slept beneath, protectors who would never allow intruders to pass. Their eyes darted to the dunes, as if expecting something to rise from the sand at any moment. Myra heard their words but did not falter. She placed her hand on the scanner screen, her voice steady. "This is not about greed or treasure. This is about knowledge. The Queen changed your people once. Maybe she can change us all again. I have to know the truth." The team began their work. Machines dug into the sand with steady rhythm, pulling away layers that had hidden the structure for countless years. Hours turned into days. The sun burned overhead, and the nights froze the camp, but Myra did not stop. Each grain of sand removed brought her closer to the chamber. Each night she stared at the stars, wondering if the Queen had once done the same. On the third night the digging revealed something. At first it was only a sharp edge of stone jutting from the dune. Then, as the sand fell away, the full shape appeared. It was a doorway, towering and ancient, carved with symbols that glowed faintly even after centuries. The aliens stepped back in fear, refusing to move closer. Some muttered prayers in their language, their eyes wide. Myra, however, walked forward slowly, her breath caught in her throat. The carvings showed a tall figure wearing a crown, her arms raised as tribes bowed before her. The style was alien, but the shape of the figure was not. It was human. Myra's hands trembled as she brushed sand from the stone. She felt as if the queen herself was watching her, waiting. The air grew colder, and the faint hum of energy echoed from the doorway. "This is it," Myra whispered, though her team could hardly hear her over the sound of the wind. The burial chamber of the forgotten queen. The doorway stood silent, sealed for ages, yet alive with a strange force. Myra's heart filled with both fear and wonder. She knew she had found something that could change everything. The queen was not just a story. She was real, and her secrets were waiting beneath the desert. Myra stepped back and looked at the team. Her eyes shone with determination. "Tomorrow, we open it." The desert wind howled as night fell, carrying with it a sense that the land itself was watching. The chamber had waited for centuries, untouched and sealed. Now at last, humanity had returned to claim its place in the story. The morning sun rose over the desert, painting the dunes in red and gold. Myra stood before the great stone doorway uncovered the night before. The carvings glowed faintly in the new light, as if the symbols themselves were alive. Her team gathered behind her, their tools ready but their faces uneasy. The alien guides refused to come near, keeping their distance at the edge of the camp. Myra studied the doorway carefully. Strange runes lined its surface, spiraling into a circle at the center. She traced the patterns with her hand, feeling a faint vibration under the stone. It was not simply carved, it was designed to respond to something. One of her human assistants, a tall man named Ryan, spoke nervously. "What if it is a trap? We have no idea what kind of technology this is." Myra looked at him calmly. "Every discovery begins with a risk. But this is not a trap. This is a key. We just have to find out what it opens." She placed her palm against the center circle. At first nothing happened, then the carvings flared with bright light. The stone shivered as if waking from a long sleep. The air buzzed with energy, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. The alien guides cried out from the distance. Some fell to their knees, covering their eyes. Others turned and fled across the dunes, unwilling to witness what was happening. To them, this was forbidden, something no one should see. The doorway rumbled as cracks of light spread across its surface. Sand fell in streams as the stone began to shift. Slowly, with a sound like thunder, the massive door slid open. A rush of cool air burst outward, carrying the scent of age and dust. Myra held her breath. Before her stretched a dark corridor, lined with walls that shimmered faintly with alien symbols. The light from outside reached only a short distance, leaving the rest hidden in shadow. She took a lantern from her pack and stepped inside. The flame flickered, casting dancing shapes across the walls. Behind her, Ryan and the others followed, their footsteps echoing softly. Every sound seemed louder in the silence of the chamber. As they walked deeper, the carvings on the walls became clearer. They showed scenes of the queen's life. In one image she stood before alien tribes, her arms raised as they knelt. In another she held a staff that shone with light, bringing peace between enemies. But what caught Myra's attention most was the detail of her face. It was not alien. It was human. Her heart pounded as she studied the carvings. "She was one of us," Myra whispered. The queen was human. The others stared in disbelief. Ryan shook his head slowly. "How could that be? Humans only arrived in this system a few hundred years ago." Myra's voice was firm. "Then she must have come before us. Long ago." She was stranded here, or perhaps she chose to stay. Either way, she lived among them and became their ruler. They moved forward until the corridor opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, supported by pillars carved into shapes of guardians with stern faces. Strange machines lined the walls, still humming faintly with power after centuries. In the center stood a raised platform with a stone sarcophagus resting upon it. The sarcophagus was covered in gold markings that glowed as Myra approached. Around it were smaller statues, each bowing toward the queen's resting place. The air was heavy with a sense of reverence, as though time itself respected the chamber. Ryan whispered, his voice trembling. "This is not just a tomb. This is a monument." Myra nodded slowly. Her eyes traced the machines along the walls. They were not dead relics. Some of them pulsed with faint energy, as if waiting. She stepped closer to the sarcophagus, her hand brushing over the golden symbols. The markings lit brighter, reacting to her touch. Suddenly the chamber shook. The statues along the walls stirred, their stone forms cracking as if shedding skin. Myra stepped back in shock as glowing eyes opened on their faces. One by one, the guardians began to rise. The humans froze in fear, unsure whether to run or fight. The guardians moved slowly, their heavy steps echoing through the chamber. They did not attack, but their gaze was fixed firmly on Myra. A deep voice filled the air, not spoken but resonating through the chamber itself. "Only the worthy may enter. Only the chosen may claim the queen's legacy." Myra stood tall despite the fear that gripped her heart. She raised her chin and looked at the guardians. "I am here for knowledge, not power. If the queen ruled with wisdom, then I will follow her path." The guardians stopped. Their glowing eyes dimmed slightly, as if they were considering her words. The chamber grew silent again, the only sound the faint hum of the machines. Ryan whispered urgently. "Myra, maybe we should leave. This place is alive. We don't know what it wants." But Myra shook her head. If the queen left this behind, she wanted someone to find it. And it seems that someone is us. She turned back toward the sarcophagus. The golden markings glowed brighter, as if waiting for her to continue. She knew this was only the beginning. The chamber held more than a tomb. It held answers to a mystery that stretched across the stars. The air grew colder as the guardians stepped back, forming a circle around the platform. It was clear now. They were not enemies. They were keepers, watching and judging. The queen's story was not yet finished, and Myra was standing at the edge of it. With steady hands, she prepared to uncover the next secret. The chamber stood silent except for the low hum of the machines hidden in its walls. Myra stood before the sarcophagus, her lantern light dancing across the golden symbols. Around her the guardians formed a circle, their massive stone bodies looming like statues brought to life. Their glowing eyes followed her every movement. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to step back. Fear had no place here. She knew this was not an ordinary tomb. The queen had left more than memories. She had left a test. One of the guardians stepped forward. Its heavy footfall sent vibrations through the stone floor. The sound was deep and steady, like the beating of a drum. Its voice echoed inside the chamber, not through air but inside their very minds. "Who seeks the queen's truth?" Myra took a slow breath and lifted her chin. "I am Myra, a daughter of Earth. I came for knowledge, not treasure. I came to remember the queen who was forgotten." The guardian tilted its head, studying her with unblinking eyes. Then it extended one great arm toward her. Light shimmered from its palm, scanning her body from head to toe. She felt warmth pass through her skin, almost as if the machine was looking into her very soul. The voice spoke again. Human. You carry the same blood as the Queen. The chamber recognizes you. Gasps filled the chamber. Ryan and the other humans stared in shock. Even Myra herself froze at the words. The same blood. She had expected the Queen to be human, but she had not expected a deeper connection. The Guardian's eyes flared brighter. The Queen foretold your return. Only the worthy may continue. Prove yourself, or turn back. The floor shifted suddenly, and stone tiles slid apart, revealing a pathway that descended deeper into the earth. A rush of cold air escaped from below, carrying the scent of dust and age. The Guardians stepped aside, creating an opening for Myra. Ryan grabbed her arm. You cannot go down there. We do not know what is waiting. Myra's eyes remained fixed on the dark stairway. If I turn back now, the Queen's story remains buried. This is why I came here. I have to see it through. She pulled free and stepped toward the stairway. The Guardians did not move to stop her. Instead, their glowing eyes followed her like silent judges. With steady steps she began to descend. Ryan and the others hesitated, but at last they followed, unwilling to leave her alone. The stairway led into a lower chamber lit by a strange blue glow. The walls pulsed softly as though alive, covered with carvings that told more of the Queen's tale. Myra's eyes widened as she traced them with her lantern. They showed the Queen arriving from the sky, her broken ship behind her. The aliens of the desert stood before her in fear, but she reached out to them with open hands. Slowly, panel by panel, the carvings revealed how she brought peace, united the tribes, and built a kingdom of knowledge. Myra stopped at one carving that showed the Queen standing before massive guardians, the same kind that now watched over Myra herself. The symbols below translated into a single phrase, the guardians serve the rightful heir. Her throat tightened. The carvings were not just history. They were instructions. The Queen had built these guardians not only to protect her chamber but also to guide whoever came after her. The chamber grew brighter. At the center stood a pedestal, and upon it rested a crown-like device made of metal and crystal. It glowed faintly, as if still alive with energy. The guardians' voices rose in unison, deep and powerful. Only the chosen may touch the crown. Myra stepped closer, her heart racing. She felt as though the Queen herself was watching her from the shadows. Ryan whispered urgently, his voice tight with fear. Myra, think carefully. What if this thing changes you? What if it was never meant for us? Myra's hand hovered above the crown. The Queen was one of us. She trusted her legacy to the future. If she wanted her people forgotten, she would not have left this behind. Before she could act, the floor rumbled again. More guardians stirred in the shadows, stepping forward. Their voices spoke with warning. Prove your heart. Show wisdom, or be cast into silence. Suddenly the walls lit up with bright symbols. The air filled with visions that surrounded Myra and her team. They saw flashes of war, fire across the desert, tribes fighting for power. They saw the Queen standing between them, her face calm, her hands raised for peace. Myra realized this was the test. The chamber wanted to know if she carried the same spirit as the Queen. She closed her eyes and spoke loudly into the silence. I choose peace. I choose knowledge. I do not seek to rule. I only seek to understand. The visions faded. The rumbling stopped. The guardians lowered their heads, their glowing eyes softening. The crown pulsed brighter, as if accepting her words. Myra opened her eyes and saw it shining before her. She did not touch it yet. Instead she turned to her team, her voice steady. This chamber is not about power. It is about memory. The Queen wanted us to remember her path. If we follow it, we can bring unity again. The guardians remained still, watching her in silence. It was clear the chamber had judged her and found her worthy, but the journey was far from over. The crown waited, and with it, the rest of the Queen's secrets. Myra stepped back from the pedestal. She knew the time to claim it would come, but first she had to prepare. This was not just about her. It was about everyone who would learn the truth. The guardians slowly returned to their places, silent once more. But Myra could feel it. They were no longer only watchers. They were protectors, bound to her as they had once been bound to the Queen. She raised her lantern higher, her eyes shining with determination. The Queen's story was unfolding again, and humanity was at the center of it. The chamber below stretched wider than Myra had imagined. The blue glow lit the walls, showing rows of sealed pods lined neatly in the stone. Each pod was covered in dust, but faint light still blinked on their surfaces. The air smelled of age and metal. It was clear that this place was not only a tomb. It was a vault. Myra walked slowly between the pods, her lantern casting long shadows. She brushed away the dust on one of them and gasped. Inside lay a figure preserved in stillness, not alive but not destroyed by time either. The being looked alien, with scaled skin and long limbs, yet its face showed peace, not fear. Ryan stepped beside her, his voice tense. These are not graves. These are records. The Queen kept them here. Myra nodded. Yes. She wanted the future to see her world, not only through stone carvings but through the people themselves. They moved further, and Myra noticed that each pod contained a different species. Some looked like desert tribes, others like winged beings she had never seen before. The Queen had not ruled only one race. She had brought together many. At the far end of the chamber stood a tall crystal pillar. It glowed with shifting colors, humming softly like a living heart. Myra placed her hand on it, and the pillar responded, filling the chamber with light. A figure appeared before them, formed of shimmering energy. It was a woman, tall and graceful, dressed in robes marked with golden patterns. Her face was clear, and Myra's breath caught in her throat. She was human. The projection spoke in a calm voice that echoed across the chamber. If you are seeing this, then my time has long passed. I was once a traveler of the stars, cast down upon this world when my ship was lost. Alone, I should have perished. But the tribes of this land took me in, though they feared me at first. In time, I earned their trust. They called me Queen, though I only wished to be a guide. Myra stood frozen, listening as the voice of the forgotten Queen told her story. I taught them unity when war divided them. I showed them peace when hatred consumed them. We built together, and for a time the desert bloomed. But I knew it would not last forever. My body would fade, and the world would forget. So I left behind this place, a memory of what we achieved. The projection paused, its eyes turning directly toward Myra, though it was only light. If you are human, then you are my kin. You must remember that power is not the path. Only wisdom keeps peace alive. The image faded, leaving silence. Myra's heart beat quickly. She felt as though she had spoken directly with the Queen herself. Her eyes burned with emotion, but her voice was steady. She was one of us. She truly lived here, and she became their leader. The guardians in the chamber shifted slightly, their eyes glowing brighter as if to confirm the truth. Ryan looked around, his face pale. If this is true, then history is wrong. Humans were part of this world long before we believed. Myra's gaze moved to the pods again. She kept them here as proof. She wanted us to see the people she united. Not to divide, but to remember. On the floor near the pillar she noticed a small platform, and upon it lay a crown-shaped device. Its surface glowed faintly, pulsing with the same rhythm as the pillar. Myra bent down, her fingers hovering just above it. She felt warmth radiating from the strange metal, almost like a heartbeat. One of the guardians stepped forward, its deep voice filling the chamber. The crown holds the queen's gift. But it is not a weapon. It is a bond. Only the worthy may wear it. Myra's hands trembled. She wanted to reach for it, yet she feared what might come after. She remembered the queen's warning in the message. Power was not the path. Wisdom was the key. She stood slowly and turned to her team. This changes everything. The queen was not just a leader. She was human, like us, and she proved that peace between worlds is possible. If we carry this knowledge back, it could unite or it could divide. The choice will matter more than the discovery itself. Ryan frowned. You think others will not accept this truth? Myra's eyes darkened. Some will see it as hope. Others will see it as a threat. A human queen ruling aliens long ago may not sit well with those who fear humanity's rise. The chamber grew heavy with silence. Even the machines seemed to wait for her decision. She could feel the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. At last she spoke firmly. We will not take the crown yet. First we must learn all she left behind. We must understand before we act. The guardians stepped back, their glowing eyes dimming slightly, as if approving her restraint. The chamber returned to its quiet hum, but Myra knew it was not asleep. It was watching. It was waiting. She turned once more to the crystal pillar. The queen's image had faded, but her presence lingered in the air. Myra placed her hand over her heart. I will not fail you. Your story will be remembered. As the team prepared to leave the lower chamber, Myra looked back at the pods one last time. Dozens of faces, frozen in time, stood as witnesses to the Queen's legacy. She knew they carried the silent truth of a past the galaxy had long forgotten. When she stepped back into the stairway, her mind was set. She had uncovered the hidden truth. But she also understood the danger it carried. Outside these walls, the world was not ready for such a story. And yet, she would not let it remain buried. The Queen had trusted the future. Now the future had arrived. The desert outside the chamber was no longer silent. News of Myra's discovery had spread quickly across the region. By the time her team returned to the surface, groups of aliens were gathering near the excavation site. Their tents rose on the dunes like small fortresses, and their banners waved in the hot wind. Myra watched them from the ridge, her eyes narrowing. She had expected attention, but not this quickly. She counted at least 3 different tribes, each armed and each glaring at the humans with suspicion. Ryan joined her, his voice low. They do not look pleased. Some of them are carrying weapons openly. They think we are stealing something that belongs to them. Myra's jaw tightened. The Queen united their ancestors. Her chamber belongs to all, not just one tribe. But they will not see it that way. By evening, the first delegation approached the camp. Their leader was tall, his skin marked with bright blue paint. He carried a staff tipped with bone, a sign of his authority. He spoke with a voice filled with anger. You humans have no right here. The chamber of the queen belongs to the people of the desert. Leave it, or face our judgment. Myra stood firm, her eyes meeting his. The queen was not only yours. She was human. Her chamber opened for me because I carry her blood. We do not seek to take it from you, but the truth must be shared. A growl rippled through the alien warriors. Some gripped their weapons, but the leader raised his staff and silenced them. His gaze sharpened. You speak lies. The queen was ours. You dare to claim her as your own. Myra shook her head. I claim nothing. I only tell you what the chamber itself revealed. If you wish to see, then enter. The guardians will show you the truth. The leader turned away sharply, refusing her offer. His people did not trust the chamber, fearing what might lie within. To them, her words were dangerous, a threat to their history. That night, Myra's camp was restless. Fires burned on the dunes as tribes gathered closer, their voices rising in chants and arguments. Some demanded war, while others whispered that perhaps the humans spoke truth. The desert was alive with tension. Inside her tent, Myra sat with her team. The lantern light cast long shadows across their tired faces. Ryan spoke with frustration. We cannot hold the site if they attack. We are too few, and supplies are already low. If they cut us off, we will not last long. Another assistant, Lyra, looked fearful. Perhaps we should leave and return later with more support. This discovery is too large for us alone. Myra listened but did not answer at once. Her mind was heavy with the queen's words. Power was not the path. Wisdom was the key. To walk away would mean losing the chance to protect the queen's legacy, but to stay risked conflict. At last she said quietly, if we leave, others will come. They may not value peace. They may twist the queen's story into a weapon. We must hold to her vision, even if it is hard. The team fell silent. They knew she was right, though fear still hung in their hearts. By dawn, another group arrived. These aliens wore different colors, their leader older and calmer. He spoke with caution, not anger. Human, we have heard the chamber responds to you. If the queen was truly your kin, then perhaps you are the key. But others will not accept this. You must be careful. The tribes will fight over this truth. Myra bowed her head slightly. I will not claim the queen for myself. Her message was unity. If we fight over her memory, we destroy what she built. The older leader studied her with thoughtful eyes. Then prove it. Show us that your people are not here to rule but to share. Myra agreed, though she knew it would not be easy. Already, whispers of betrayal spread through the desert. Some tribes accused her of trickery. Others demanded that the crown from the chamber be brought out and handed over. Tension grew sharper each hour. That night, sabotage struck. Supplies were stolen from the camp. A water tank was cut open, leaving precious liquid spilling into the sand. The humans woke to find tracks leading back toward one of the tribes. Ryan's anger boiled. They are trying to starve us out. We should strike back before they destroy everything. Myra held up her hand. No. If we fight, we prove them right. They say humans only take by force. We must show them another way. But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. Could peace truly hold in a desert filled with suspicion and fear? The queen had united tribes once, but she had carried great wisdom and strength. Myra wondered if she could do the same. She walked to the ridge and looked at the chamber below. The guardian still stood within, waiting. The crown still pulsed faintly, calling to her. She had resisted it before, but now she felt its presence stronger. Was it the key to peace, or would it only bring more conflict? The desert wind whipped across her face, carrying the voices of the tribes. She could hear their arguments, their threats, their fear. She closed her eyes and remembered the queen's words. Wisdom, not power. Myra knew the hardest trial was still to come. The chamber had tested her once, but now the world outside would test her again. She would have to stand between tribes, between fear and truth, and prove that humanity could walk the queen's path. The night deepened, and the fires on the dunes burned brighter. The desert was waiting, just as the chamber had waited for centuries. Myra tightened her hands into fists. She would not let the queen's memory be broken by war. She would find a way to protect it, even if the cost was heavy. The chamber was quiet, but Myra felt its silent call stronger than ever. Each night she resisted the pull of the crown, yet each day the tribes grew more restless. The older leader who had spoken calmly before now warned her. They will not wait much longer. Some are preparing to fight. If you cannot prove the queen's words soon, the desert will burn. Myra knew he was right. The queen's message was about unity, but no one trusted words alone. They wanted proof, and the chamber itself seemed to demand it. At dawn, Myra gathered her team and walked toward the great doors once more. The guardians stood as still as stone, but when she approached, their eyes glowed faintly. Ryan hesitated. Are you certain about this? The crown is dangerous. What if it changes you? Myra looked at him firmly. If the queen left it behind, it was not meant to be hidden forever. She wanted her heirs to face the trial. If we do nothing, the tribes will destroy one another. I must enter. The doors opened without a touch. The chamber seemed brighter than before, the walls shimmering with ancient symbols. The crown lay on its pedestal, pulsing like a heart. Myra stepped closer, her breath steady. She remembered the queen's voice echoing in her mind, wisdom, not power. She reached out and lifted the crown. It was lighter than she expected, warm against her skin. The moment it touched her brow, the chamber filled with light. Symbols rose from the walls, swirling in the air. The guardians stepped forward, their voices blending as one. Trial begins. The air must be tested. Truth or ruin. Myra's vision blurred. She was no longer in the chamber. Instead, she stood in a vast desert under a starless sky. The sand stretched endlessly, and distant shapes moved like shadows. A voice whispered, deep and ancient. You carry the queen's blood. But can you carry her burden? The shadows took shape as figures. They were not warriors, but people, men, women, children, hungry, tired, afraid. Their voices rose in need. Feed us. Protect us. Guide us. Myra reached for them, but they slipped like smoke through her hands. No matter what she offered, it was never enough. The voice spoke again. Power cannot feed all. What will you choose? She paused, remembering her own struggles in the desert. Food, water, protection, these had always been survival's demands. But the queen had chosen differently. Myra closed her eyes and spoke aloud. I cannot give them everything. But I can give them hope, and teach them to rise together. The starless sky flickered, and the shadows grew brighter, no longer desperate but standing tall. The voice whispered approval. Wisdom sees beyond hunger. The queen chose well. The vision shifted. Myra now stood in the middle of two armies. On one side were humans, on the other aliens. Both shouted, both raised weapons. The air was heavy with the promise of battle. Lead them, the voice commanded. But which side will you save? Myra's heart raced. If she chose humans, the aliens would hate her forever. If she chose aliens, her people would turn against her. The choice was a trap. She lowered her weapon and raised her hands instead. I will not choose one against the other, she declared. The queen united tribes once. I will unite them again. If they fight, they lose all. If they walk together, they become strong. The armies wavered, their weapons lowering. Slowly, the battlefield dissolved. The chamber returned. Myra gasped as the crown glowed brighter, then settled softly on her head. The guardians bowed. The trial is complete. You carry wisdom. The queen's path lives again. When Myra left the chamber, her team stared in awe. The crown rested upon her brow, shining faintly like a star. Ryan stepped forward, his voice hushed. Myra, you did it. You carry her light. But outside, the tribes had gathered, restless and armed. They had seen the glow of the chamber from the dunes, and fear had spread like fire. When Myra emerged, crown on her head, shouts broke out. See! She takes the queen's power for herself, one voice cried. She means to rule us, another accused. The crowd surged with anger. Spears and blades were raised. For a moment, Myra feared the trial meant nothing, that all would end in blood. Then she raised her hands, her voice carrying across the desert. This crown is not mine alone. The queen left it for her children, and her children are all of us, human and alien. It is not a weapon, it is a guide. If you fight, the queen's dream dies. If you stand together, her legacy lives. The words hung in the air. Some scoffed, but others grew quiet. The older leader who had spoken with her before stepped forward. His voice carried authority. I watched her enter the chamber. I saw the light of the crown. She does not hold it like a conqueror. She holds it like the queen once did. Perhaps her words are true. The desert grew silent. The tribes looked to one another, torn between fear and hope. Myra stood tall, the crown glowing faintly in the twilight. The trial of the crown was finished, but the true test was only beginning. Would the tribes accept unity, or would suspicion still lead them to war? Myra felt the queen's presence within her, a quiet whisper of strength. She knew what must come next. The burial chamber had given her its blessing, but the desert had yet to give its answer. The desert was quiet after Myra's words, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence of a crowd torn between fear and hope. The tribes stared at her, their banners shaking in the wind, their weapons still in hand. Some wanted to believe her, but others saw only a human wearing the queen's crown. Ryan stepped to her side, his hand near his tool belt, ready if danger came. They don't trust us, he whispered. One wrong word and they will charge. Myra lifted her chin. The crown on her brow glowed faintly, its light soft but steady. She felt the queen's presence inside her, calm and guiding. She took a breath and spoke again. The queen was not one tribe, not one people. She came from the stars, and she walked among the desert folk. She gave her life to unite them, not to divide them. If you fight today, you break her gift. If you choose peace, you honor her. her words carried across the dunes. Some warriors lowered their weapons, uneasy. Others shouted back in anger. Lies. The queen belonged to us alone. You want to take her from us. The crowd stirred again. For a moment it seemed the desert would drown in violence. But then the older leader, the one who had spoken calmly before, raised his hand. His voice was steady. I have watched her. She does not hold the crown as a ruler, but as a guide. I believe the queen's blood runs in her veins. And I believe the queen's voice speaks through her. I will not raise my weapon against her. His people lowered their spears, one by one. Another tribe leader shouted angrily. You are fooled by her tricks. The humans want control of our lands. He turned to his warriors, urging them forward. But the guardians from the chamber appeared at that moment, their eyes glowing like fire. They stepped between Myra and the crowd, silent but powerful. Gasps filled the air. None dared challenge the guardians. Their presence alone made even the most hostile warriors step back. Myra seized the moment. She raised her voice, firm but gentle. You see the guardians. They obey no one but the queen. If I were a thief, they would have struck me down. Instead they opened the chamber for me, because the queen herself wished for her message to be heard again. The tribes murmured among themselves. Doubt still lingered, but fear of the guardians and the glow of the crown weighed heavier. Slowly, more leaders lowered their weapons. That night, a great fire was built on the ridge. For the first time, the tribes sat together in one circle. Myra sat at the center with the crown still upon her head, Ryan and her team at her side. Around her, the desert folk argued, questioned, and debated, but they did not fight. Myra told them the visions she had seen in the trial. She spoke of the hungry people who could not be fed with power alone. She spoke of the armies who wanted war but found peace when she chose unity. She explained the queen's lesson: strength without wisdom was empty, but wisdom could guide strength to build, not destroy. Some listened with suspicion, but others nodded slowly. They knew the desert was harsh. They had fought for water, for food, for survival. Perhaps the queen's path was the only way forward. By dawn, an agreement was formed. The chamber would not belong to one tribe or to humans alone. It would be shared, guarded by all, as a place of learning and unity. The crown would remain inside, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Myra would guide the first steps, but no one would rule as a queen or king again. The tribe sealed the pact with a ritual of water, pouring it onto the sand together so that it sank into the desert. As the water mixes, so do we, the older leader declared. For the first time in many lifetimes, the desert tribes stood side by side without fear. Myra watched the rising sun paint the dunes gold. She felt the queen's presence fade gently, as if resting at last. The crown's glow dimmed, becoming quiet once more. Myra lifted it from her head and carried it back into the chamber. She placed it on the pedestal where it had waited for centuries. The guardians bowed their heads, and the chamber grew still. The crown no longer called to her. Its trial was complete. When she returned to the surface, Ryan smiled faintly. You gave up the crown. Myra nodded. It was never mine to keep. It belongs to the queen, and to all who walk her path. If we carry her wisdom, we need no crown. The desert wind swept across them, carrying no shouts of war this time, only the sound of tents being built together near the fire. The tribes were still many, still different, but they were no longer enemies. They were children of the same queen, bound by her legacy. That night, As stars filled the sky, Myra stood on the ridge and gazed at the endless sands. She felt both small and strong. The queen had been forgotten once, but no longer. Her burial chamber had not only revealed history, it had awakened a future. And as the desert breathed with new hope, Myra knew that humanity had not only survived among the stars but had given something precious in return, the chance for unity in a land once ruled by division. The queen's legacy lived again.